Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in to part 3 of our gender journey. Today, we have Jackie as a guest to discuss the next part.
Hey,
Jackie, how old are you?
I'm 13.
Ooh, lucky number 13. And you listened to the other 2 parts, right?
Yeah, it was really interesting learning about intersex. I never heard of it before.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you took something away from it. So, surprise everyone, I decided to add a part 4 to our gender journey, just to break everything up even more. So, when part 3 is listened to and understood, go right on to part 4, which will conclude our gender journey. So, let's get into today's topic, the gender galaxy. And yes, Gender Galaxy is exploring gender through outer space and the planets. Fun analogy, right?
Oh, that is fun.
So remember in part 1 when I said that sex and gender identity are not the same thing? That is because some people's sex does not line up with their gender identity. Some are, let's say, assigned a boy at birth, and as they grow, understand that that is not who they are. That's why I say gender identity is not the same as sex. It can be, but in some cases it's not. Your gender identity can shift and change as you grow and learn more about yourself.
That's cool. So, if your sex doesn't line up with your gender identity, they can be like transgender and non-binary, right?
Ooh, you're getting way ahead. But good for you for knowing. Yes. Those are 2 of the multiple identities people can be. But we'll get more into that in a second. Something I want to explain first is vocab word, the gender binary. That is the idea of gender identity cutting off at male and female, boy and girl only. The gender binary is not what we want to refer to, though. It's what is taught in our society as the 2 genders. So now we need to work on stepping away from the idea that there are only 2 genders.
Right, so like where would intersex people fall in that category?
So intersex is biological, scientific, as I said in part 1. It's an assigned sex along with male or female. It's not within that gender binary that we know of. And that's why it's important we all know and raise awareness about it. Good question. So back to the gender galaxy. Let's think of this visually. We know the Milky Way is the galaxy that contains our solar system with multiple planets and stars. And we know every planet revolves around the sun. So let's name the sun in our gender galaxy gender identity. And each planet surrounding is a different gender identity, including transgender and non-binary, like you said. And what's important to remember is that everyone has a place in this galaxy, and that they are all supported in where they belong in this galaxy. And like I said before, gender identity can shift as you grow, so people are not married to just one planet. They can move when they please.
So, what other gender identity planets are there?
Let's discuss transgender first. Vocab word! Transgender, or trans, means that your assigned sex does not line up with your gender identity. Someone can be assigned a boy at birth, and that is their biological sex. Remember, scientific. But then, as they grow, understand that in their heart, which remember is never wrong, that is not who they are. In that case, they will, vocab word, transition. That is when a trans person can change their gender expression, what we learned in part 1, to line up with their gender identity. And that gender identity can be any of the other gender identities we talk about in these 2 parts. So, change in gender expression can include name, behaviors, pronouns, which I will explain, clothing, hairstyles, and so much more. It's all dependent on each person and what they want to do.
Oh, so trans people don't just have to transition into being the opposite sex. They can transition to other gender identities like non-binary, and the others will learn.
Very good. You are smart. And I said this before, and I'll say it 1,000,000 times more. It is all dependent on each person and how they are. Now, our second planet will be vocab word, non-binary, which means your identity and expression do not line up with being a male or female within the binary. Another way to define that is vocab word, genderqueer, which is literally queer gender, queer in your gender. While non-binary and genderqueer are very similar in not following the gender binary and all the stereotypes and norms that come with it, it's important to note that they are different in definition and historically have different ways of coming about. And there are some people who use both words together to describe themselves. Again, it's all dependent on the individual. So, rather than being a male or female, they are simply non-binary, genderqueer people. So let's include non-binary and genderqueer as two separate planets.
So like trans people can transition into being a trans woman or trans man or non-binary, and non-binary people are like not in the binary. I'm saying binary a lot. And genderqueer people are similar to non-binary people in that their gender is queer, not like in the binary. And people use both terms to describe themselves. Got it?
Yes. So those are 3 of our planets in the gender galaxy: transgender, non-binary, and genderqueer. Let's go on to more. Our 4th planet is gender fluid. Vocab word! Gender fluid people are exactly as they sound. They flow back and forth within the gender binary of male or female. It's like how we flow in the water. Remember when I said gender identity can shift? This is an example of how gender identity and gender expression can shift.
So like it has to do with both identity and expression. That's cool.
It is. It's the idea of leaning masculine one day, leaning more feminine another day, or being a combination of both the other day. That's the nature of being gender fluid. So that was our 4th planet. Let's go on to our 5th. Vocab word, cisgender, or cis for short, CISGENDER. This is when your sex and gender identity line up. So, since my sex and gender identity line up, I am a cisgender woman.
Mine does too. So I'm a cisgender girl.
Great. So, if you can recall way back to episode 1 on the topic of privilege, it's really important for us as cis girls to acknowledge our privileges of being cisgender. Other people are more likely not to misgender or get our gender identity wrong. When we use the women's bathroom, we don't have to fear people harassing or yelling at us for it. Those are only a few privileges we as cisgender people have.
I never even thought of that. Like, I did listen to that episode, but I never even thought of easily using the women's bathroom as a privilege. Wow.
It's always good to remember our privilege, even when it's the smallest things we don't even think about. Because sadly, our friends who are on other planets of the gender galaxy have to think about it because of potential responses from people who are not educated. And that's why we use the gender galaxy to make people aware and make all identities inclusive. Let's get back on track. Want to maybe give me a quick recap of the last 5 planets we talked on? Give me the definition of transgender, non-binary, and genderqueer.
Transgender is like when your sex and gender identity don't line up. So you transition in your gender expression to line up with your identity, like any of the planets. being non-binary and genderqueer is like when you don't live within the gender binary of male or female. So you're just your own person. Their definitions are not exactly the same, but are like very similar. And people who are non-binary and genderqueer use them both to describe them.
Excellent. Now gender fluid and cisgender.
Gender fluid is exactly as it sounds, being fluid in the binary with your gender identity and expression. So like more masculine one day or more feminine the other, or a mixture of both. Cisgender is when your sex and identity do line up, like you and me right now.
Good. So take in everything that was just taught and then go on to part 4, where we will go over some more planets. Link to that is in the description below. See you soon!